Welcome to the Online Course Revolution. Join co-hosts Joelle and Natalie Rivera as they interview successful entrepreneurs who have used online courses to transform their business. The goal of this podcast is to both inspire you to share your unique knowledge, experience, and expertise with the world, and provide practical insights so you can join the online course revolution and make money teaching what you know and love online. Today's guests are Jason and Tamera Dion. They're a husband and wife team who have reached over 100,000 students in 189 countries through their online courses and books. Jason's experience is in the cybersecurity field and as an instructor at the University of Maryland, while Tamera was a stay-at-home mother who homeschooled both of their children. By the end of 2016, Jason discovered online courses and decided to create his own courses and give it a try. Within a year, the business had exploded, and Tamera decided to come alongside him and take over the production side of the business. Since partnering together, each contributing their strengths and helping each other overcome their weaknesses, their small training company has experienced tremendous growth. The semi-passive income from their new venture has opened up a new world of possibilities for them, including their plans to take advantage of their financial freedom and location independence to travel the world in a couple years when their children will graduate high school and Jason will fully retire.
I just want to welcome the both of you. We're really excited to have you here with us today. I think that you can add a lot of value to our listeners, not only because you're a couple that's working together. So I know that we talk to a lot of people and there's a lot of couples out there that want to develop a business and want to know how to make it work. And also because you are a perfect example of creating a new income potential in a new market, a new economy. And I think a lot of people have their careers and maybe they want to transition. And I think it's a good example of how can you utilize technology now with the knowledge that you have to really expand and really contribute to the life of so many people from around the world as you all are doing. And also the fact that you all have just a family business, and we'll talk more about that, how your kids work with you and everything. So I think it's a beautiful thing. So we're excited.
So with that said, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having us. We're happy to be here.
Absolutely. And so we're going to start out, obviously, from listening to the bio about you guys. Everyone knows that you create online courses. And so the question is, when you first, how did you first come across this? Give people a background, what do you do? Or what were you doing? How did you find online courses? And when you first started, what were your expectations versus what's actually happened?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually started teaching as an adjunct professor at the local community college back in 2012 or 13. And I did that up until about 2016. So about 4 years teaching in the classroom. I really enjoyed it. And I had a day job, and my day job started having me travel more. And so I couldn't teach in the classroom anymore because I wasn't there at night. I was, someplace else around the world. And so my last class I ended up recording it, voice over PowerPoint, had a mic set up in the classroom, recorded myself and put it on YouTube so that my students could go back and reference the material after. And then about a year went by and one of my friends goes, "Hey, why are you doing this on YouTube? Why don't you do this Udemy thing?" And I never heard of Udemy, never saw it. And I went and checked out. I was like, okay, I'll try that. So I took that course and I put it onto Udemy over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend in 2016. Added some, I put some downloads there as resources, put some quizzes, that kind of stuff. And the next month I saw that, I was rich. No, not really.
Not yet.
I made a whole $59.85 that first month. But actually I was surprised, right? Because I didn't know you could make money by selling videos online, right? And to me, I was like, wow, this is awesome. And so I went and started building my next course. And over the next 2 months, I built another course and put it out. And every month it kind of gained a little bit more momentum. And by the third course, we actually started making something that was a couple $100 a month. I think it was $500 a month at that point. And I still had my day job. And so I asked Tamera, I'm like, hey, why don't you start editing these videos? Because that'll free up a lot of my time. I can record more because, the stuff we're teaching is stuff that I'm an expert in, that I do for a living. And you can do this editing. And so that's how she got involved in it.
I didn't have a whole lot else to do during the day. I mean, I stayed home with the kids and their homeschool stuff was mostly when they did online one, it had videos and stuff for them. So they didn't need as much interaction with me. So I had time. I just kind of sat around and waited on them to be done with work for the day. And so I was like, oh, okay, fine. I'll help you with this. I guess it's making some money.
Yeah. And, once she came along and started helping is really when things started expanding much faster, started getting a lot more traction. And so, now we're here 2 years later. It's, December 2018 now. So exactly 2 years after we started, we have over 60,000 students on Udemy, plus tens of thousands in other platforms as well. The income that we make from it is phenomenal. Never expected it. Went from, $59 a month to, 5 figures a month. And it's just, really changed a lot of what we've been able to do. And it all came out because one of my friends at work was like, hey, why don't you go think about this place? Why don't you go try this out? And, you talked about the new economy earlier, and it was one of those things that I hadn't really thought of, right? I was still in the traditional 9 to 5, you go get a job, you work for, big, large corporation, or you work for the government or something like that. You do that for, 30 or 40 years, you get your pension and you retire, right? That's kind of how I grew up. And, Udemy was my introduction in this whole other world that was out there.
Yeah, and it's very exciting because for us, for example, I had a friend that used to do a lot of conferences and actually used to teach psychology as a psychology professor before we started doing the courses online. And I had a friend that we used to do conferences and workshops with, and he called me. He's like, I'm in Puerto Rico, and on vacation, and I'm here drinking, having a drink, and I'm hitting refresh, and I'm seeing the sales come in. So I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, some of the workshops that we do together, I started creating online courses and putting them in different platforms, and it just kind of been taking off. And that's really what's our introduction to that. So I can really relate. And we at the time we had 5 different businesses, so we didn't think that, that world was even possible. So I do have a question. So did you know how to edit video before? Obviously you do all the production now.
Yeah.
So before, back when our daughter, cause she's 14, back when she was a baby, we played with, I don't even know what we used.
Movie Maker way back in the day.
Yeah, it was way back in the day. But we did instead of doing a whole bunch of pictures and stuff, we did baby videos of her when she was little. He did more of it then, but then over the years I would play with stuff. A couple of years ago, actually when the movie Hercules came out with Dwayne Johnson in it, I had the brilliant idea to combine clips from the movie with the I'll Make a Man Out of You from Mulan, because I had to. I knew a bunch of the basics of editing, but I've definitely grown a lot in the past couple of years.
And for me, I've always been a techie, nerdy kind of guy. So I've always been playing on computers. There's not a piece of software out there I can't learn. As far as video editing, in high school, I was in video production class. So I was familiar with nonlinear editing and linear editing from back then, but that was late 90s. So it's definitely so much easier nowadays.
So much easier.
I mean, if you can work just a regular computer program, it's very point and click, very easy. You can drag things around and do things fairly quickly. And if you don't know how, there's plenty of courses online to learn, right?
That's very true. Actually, what's funny is I took video production in high school too, except we were using the tapes. And
yes.
When you were trying to splice things together, you have to record it from one tape to another. So it's funny that for both of us, it's that seed was planted of the concept of how creating a video works. But it's so night and day, because now it's basically anyone can do it. I always tell people, if you can work your way around a Word document, you can figure out how to edit video if you use the more simple, user-friendly programs.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, the tools are very easy nowadays. Even the complex tools. We use Adobe Premiere, which is one of the professional grade, more complex tools out there. But it's still fairly straightforward to do this type of stuff you need to be able to put out a video course. It's not that challenging to record yourself with a camera, take that, chop it into pieces, and then move the blocks around into the correct order. And that's really what those editors are there for. If you want to get complex, there's lots of complex things you can do. I think what we do is more complex than most, because we use green screening techniques and all that kind of stuff. But in general, it's not an overcomable barrier to get that done.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that's one of the things you brought up about that it's not complex. That's one of the things that we preach all the time, is that you're not making a commercial or a movie. Yep. You're making a course. And so the more simple you keep your videos, the easier it is. And especially for, it makes it so there's not a big barrier to entry for people. So if there's anyone that's listening to this that has something that they'd love to teach, it's just, know from all four of us that this is something that you can definitely learn how to do.
Well, I think a good point too is for the people listening is that what has made you successful is that y'all were willing to step in. You hear about an opportunity and you're willing to take the risk or dedicate the time. Because really at the time, it was probably more like sweat equity, where you say, I'm going to dedicate some time to this and see what happens. And if it takes off, and that you were able to see a small return and then see, wait, if that's a return, that can grow. Because for example, for me, it was like I started calculating how many courses would I need to have to make this much amount of money. And obviously it's exponential growth. And I didn't really consider that at the time, but it's just the reality that life is full of opportunities if we're willing to look at them and really just kind of chip away at it.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that really surprised me with this, right? Is especially if you're used to the traditional job, right? You go to work, you put in your 40 hours and you get your X dollars per hour and you come home with a paycheck, right? And then next week you start again at zero and you put in 40 hours and you get X amount of dollars, right? But when you build these courses, the thing that really seemed to surprise me was how it builds on each other. So the first course goes out and maybe you make $300 a month, right? But it's $300 every month. And if that course doesn't have to be changed again for 2 or 3 years, then you've made the second course and that's another 300. So now you got 3 and 3 is 6, as opposed to just, now it's 2X and then it's 3X and then it's 4X. And so it really does build on itself and it gives you the ability to snowball as opposed to just the standard, changing time for money.
Yeah, it's so important. And that's, like I'm sitting here thinking like preach, because it's such a big insight. This idea of the passive income or residual. And it's kind of this sort of field is somewhere in between. It's not completely passive because you still have to follow up and answer questions. And then you have to keep making content because that's part of what makes it work. But it's sort of residual. It's not like someone's subscribing and they're paying a monthly fee. But what's so cool is like you make one course and then you have students in there and they're interested in that topic. So you make another course that's related to it. And a lot of those same students will take the second course. And so it's, as far as a business model goes, like we like to think of online courses like real estate. It's like instead of buying a piece of real estate that has like a rental income and you make a few $100 a month, you create a course and it serves the same purpose. So we're putting in our time into creating content instead of, cleaning houses and fixing toilets, you know what I mean? But it's still work. It's just a different type and it pays off in the long run. So
I do have one question. And it has to do with you as a couple. A lot of people say you shouldn't go into business with family or with friends and things like that. And we do it. So we get it. We've actually been in business together for like a decade
almost a decade now.
So, but for us, it works. So what do you all do to make it work? Or how does it work with you guys?
So I'll start and then she'll tell you everything I'm going to say is a lie. So I think one of the things that helps is that I still have my regular job. So I still work full-time in a regular job. And then I come home and I work part-time in this job. So I think that helps because we're not on top of each other all day long. I think the big thing is to try not to boss your spouse around. She's still your spouse, not your employee. I've had to learn that one sometimes.
A little bit.
And I think everybody works differently, right? I'm a very type A, extremely driven personality. I'm deadline driven. I've got a task list and I'm going to get from, task 1 to task 50. And if it takes me 12 hours to do that and sit in this chair, I'm going to get it done, right? She's not that way. So I have to work around that and realize that, hey, she needs breaks and she doesn't want to sit and work for 12 hours straight. That's not her idea of fun. So I think working those type of things. I think the other thing that's a challenge is whether you're a couple doing it or even just a single person doing it, is when you're working from home, being able to turn it off at some point, right? I am really bad about that. I will sit there and start working and then look up and be like, oh, it's 11 o'clock at night. I probably should go eat dinner or something, right? So she tries to keep me honest and give me set times of what I need. What do you think?
Yeah. He definitely needs to be monitored or he will be in front of the computer all day, either creating a course, answering students, emails. Even when he was doing the college thing, he would answer student emails at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, you've got a 24-hour window. They can wait until morning. It's not that important to get to them right now. So I've gotten him to back down just a little bit on that. But at the same time, like, I would never actually get anything done if he didn't actually make me. So I need a little bit of that too, because it's still weird because I'm still at home all day and it doesn't feel like a job really. It feels like I'm just, because I enjoy the video editing. It's fun. It's something that I've always been kind of into. I had looked into going for graphic design and stuff for college. And so it's given me that little bit of something to do. And it's been helpful, I guess.
Yeah, she's always been a very artistic person and a very free-spirited type person, whereas I'm much more schedule-driven and deadline-driven. So I think it's good because it gives us a mixture of both. If it wasn't for her, I would never take any time off, and if it wasn't for me, nothing would get done. So it's a give and take, I think, and working inside your skill sets.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's a beautiful thing because really it's about knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And it really does sound like both of you, in your own way, you really balance each other out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because,
Yeah, definitely.
You need each other.
yeah, and realistically, for like when me and Nat started working together, one of the things that would happen is I'm more right brain. So I would be the person that says, oh, we can take on the world and we could do this. And, you know, we could just cliff dive and let's just do it, you know. And then she'd be like, but we have to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
In that order.
In that order, you know. And then, so what happens if this? And I'm like, you know, we'll figure it out. But with time, we both kind of rubbed off on that. And
yeah, like I'm now more willing to just like jump into something, and he's more willing to really look out ahead and see what's coming more. And so we've learned from each other. And actually it was funny when you guys were talking about like one person like really being like work, and the other person needing that, you know, kick in the butt. And then on the flip side, it's like one person overworking and the other one saying, hey, you want to come play? It's funny because for us, it's like we kind of share those roles. Like we bounce back and forth. So sometimes like one of us will be like working like a dog on a bone. And the other one is like, okay, let's go for a walk, you know, and then we'll switch roles. And so it is awesome. That's one of the things I know a lot of people who are entrepreneurs that work alone. And they always look at us like, I would love to have a partner that I could work with. Like they want it. And that's why I love the idea of doing this interview is that they want to do it. But a lot of times they're already with someone and they're really afraid of doing it. Or they're single. And so obviously they don't have that option. But I always like to tell people, if you like the idea of working with your partner, like we both liked that idea before you met. So it's like when we just started working together, like right away, because it was something we both wanted. Mm-hmm. And that I just want people to know that it is possible and you can work it out. Of course, it's challenging, but a relationship is challenging anyway, and work is challenging in business. So what's the difference? You might as well figure out a way to meld it together. So
one thing that you said is you have problems turning it off, right? And yes. I think this is important for a lot of people that work from home or entrepreneurs and things like that as well. So what do you do now? Do you have any strategies that y'all use to be able to say, this is separate, this is family time, this is like business work time?
Yeah. So right now I'm not doing a very good job of this. I'll just be honest. I was doing better a couple of months ago, but we have a couple of tight deadlines, and what I have found is that there is no such thing as life balance, right? Everyone tries to talk about the perfect life balance, and I'm going to go to the gym an hour a day, and I'm going to, take this many naps and this much work, and this perfect 24-hour day. I think it's more cyclical than that. So right now I think we're in a high period where I'm really working a crazy amount. But then when we're done with that, we set aside time and say, okay, now that we're done with that course launch that we're trying to get out by next week, we're going to take off 2 weeks. And during that 2 weeks, we're going to go on a cruise, right? Or we're going to go, take a 3-day mini vacation and go to the beach, or whatever it is. And it's December, so we're not going to the beach, but you get the idea. But I think it's important to carve off those times. And for me, I'm very schedule driven. So if I pull out my schedule and I have marked off that, hey, this weekend coming up, these 3 days, we're going out of town and we're just going to turn it off. That drives me to do that. It forces me to take those vacations, because otherwise you can get into this rhythm where you just continue to work and continue to crank out content. So I think it is important to do that. I think the other thing, as far as the relationship goes, is, again, something that I do poorly sometimes, I get really excited about the whole business part of it. I love entrepreneurship. When I was 18, I started my own company, and then I did that for a couple of years. And then I sold it and went into the corporate world, big corporate world for many years. But I love the entrepreneurship stuff. And so for me, it gets me excited. It's like we'll go out on date night on Friday night, and I'll want to sit there and talk about, hey, how we're going to grow the business and the next thing we're going to do and all that kind of stuff. She's like, can we talk about something besides the company?
A little bit.
Yeah. So I think it's important to know your spouse and know when you need to turn some of that stuff off, because that is hard. Because for me, it's like it's exciting and fun, and for her, it's like you're stressing me out.
It's like I need a different topic for a little bit. I need to talk about just something frivolous or what's going on in the neighborhood and gossip or something. Just something different. Otherwise, he would be talking about it for hours on end and nothing else. And then he would suddenly have 4 more courses planned, and I'd be looking up going, what just happened? I had to actually stop and be like, look, you can't take this one on. You've already said these 3 things that we're working on. Stop talking about another new one already.
Yeah. And I think part of that is she's helped me is to create a roadmap and said, okay, here is what we're going to work on the next 6 months or the next year. And now, because I get very ADD, and if students are like, hey, it'd be great if you put out a course on blank, I'm like, oh, great, I'll put out a course on blank, right? And it can be one student out of 60,000 told me to do that, and I'll go running that direction. So now we try to take all that input in, figure out, okay, students are asking for this topic, we'll put that on the roadmap and we'll get there. But that way I force and stay more on that schedule, and it keeps us better on track, I think.
That's so funny because in so many ways, like what you're saying, like, oh my God, we do the same thing.
And actually it's funny because I'll have a student send me an email. I would really love if you have a course on this topic, and I'll start thinking about it. I'll get all excited, and I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and I say, I have an idea, and she's like, seriously, it's 3 a.m. But by the morning I'll have this whole outline and ready to go to start recording a course. And I think it's funny too, when you all are talking about balance, and for us, for example, we'll have a whole week where we're working 12 hours a day.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
And then when we're in production mode, but we'll do the same thing. We'll then take a week off, or we'll take some days off to really be able to unwind, because it's so easy to get stuck on that working all the time when you work from home, when you're an entrepreneur and things like that.
Well, especially when you like it.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing when work, because if you think about it, if you worked for a regular company and you worked from home, when your work day was over, it would be over. There would be no temptation whatsoever to go back in the office and keep working. But when it's your own business, it's like, yeah, but I could do this, and you could see the results of what you're working on. So it's so tempting, and you like it. And so we've definitely had to learn that, and that's something, whether you're working independently or as a couple, you have to learn to establish some sort of a boundary or balance. And I love that you said there's no such thing as balance, and that's 100% correct. And we do the same thing. We'll work, and then we'll go take a trip somewhere to counterbalance the super working. Or sometimes we'll work, and then we'll say, okay, for the next few days, we're going to just simmer down and take more walks, and, and just when you need that break, and it's giving yourself permission to take it.
Yeah. I think another thing that you said was important is that y'all schedule it, your time, because what we found is that if we schedule our playtime as well, then we prioritize it just the same that we would schedule our work time, then it forces us to do that. For example, even our morning walks and stuff like that, that's part of our schedule. We'll have everything that we need to do, but within all that to do, it's also spend time doing playtime, spend time doing this, things that we'll enjoy to stay motivated. And I think also as an entrepreneur, it's also that mindset, especially when you're on the phase that you guys are in, where there's growth and there's massive growth, you want to take advantage of that growth. And you recognize that by launching a new course, that's a bigger opportunity that you're putting out there. And so.
Yeah, and actually, I wanted to ask real quick.
Oh, sure.
How does the dynamic get shifted with your children that also help you out and work with you, as far as that? When do you separate out that? How does that all work?
Yeah. So our kids are 12 and 14, right? So they're not always the best employees, right? But just tonight, as we're doing this call, my son is actually upstairs doing a bunch of data entry stuff, right? He's working on doing stuff for the company. For us with the kids, it's making sure that we're giving them stuff that they can do. for me, it's the content of what they're putting out is not necessarily as important as the fact that they're starting to learn skills of how to be good employees, right? And how entrepreneurship works, and the fact that, hey, you can make money doing things that are non-traditional, right? Because you go to school and you're always told, like, hey, you got to grow up and go to college and you go become a lawyer, right? I come from a family of lawyers, right? Everybody in my family's a lawyer but me. Or you grow up and you go and become a doctor, or, all those type of things. And for me, I'm trying to impart on the kids that, that's great. If you want to do that, go for it, right? But there's other options out there nowadays too.
Yeah.
That didn't exist when we were kids. It didn't exist when I got out of high school. So I think that's important. As far as the work dynamic, obviously I try to not go completely crazy boss mode on them because they're kids. So I still try to be loving dad. But we did actually make them write up a resume when they wanted to get a job. And they actually went through a job interview
That's awesome.
to go through that process and learn, right?
It was fun.
Because to me, it's more about a teaching moment, right? And it's seeing the outcome that comes from that. What do you think?
But we do also make sure that, like, you take time off to, like, play with them. We do. Yeah. We love to game. We've got dozens of board games and stuff downstairs. So we'll do game nights. We'll do movie nights. We've got a trip coming up with them soon just to get all of us away from the house and have some fun. So we try to balance that in there too, because there'll be, like, right now we're in crazy production work mode. So we're pretty much all doing our own thing. And then we'll take a week and actually focus on each other again. And it just kind of
it's the season
back and forth.
It's the rise and fall of the seasons, right?
So luckily we've moved around a lot. So they've always been really flexible with things. So when we've got these crazy couple weeks of filming and editing and getting stuff put out, they tend to understand that, and they just kind of hang out with their friends, play video games, read books, do work, their homework, stuff like that. And then they know that we will come back and we will have an afternoon of playing board games and watching a movie and going places.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think it's awesome because, like you said, it's really about also showing life skills, and being, for them, observing you guys and what you all are doing and being a part of it also is going to help them moving forward. Because as a college professor, I would also look at some of my students, and I recognize that by the time that some of them were graduating, with a master's, the economy had changed, and what they could do with some of those degrees were going to change drastically. So it's also having that flexibility to look at entrepreneurship, because I think that the future is truly about entrepreneurship, that you're going to have to be flexible. Because I was reading a book, what's it called?
Bold.
I don't know.
Actually, there's two books.
Yeah.
One is Abundance, one is Bold. They kind of go together. But really what it's talking about is the future is entrepreneurship. And I think that what they had been predicting is that, right, our grandparents' generation, they had one job their whole lives.
Yep. Yeah.
And our parents' generation, they had several. And then our generation, people tend to have 5 or 6 or however many, but that our children are going to grow up and they're going to have 5 at one time. And it's going to be all these little side gigs, side hustles, part-time jobs. And the entrepreneurship is going to become required because the economy is going to change. So it's awesome. It's become like cool to be an entrepreneur. Yeah. So that's good because that's the direction it's going.
So one thing is, how do you see your business evolving right now?
So I'll take that one if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, go for it.
So it's evolved a lot in just the last 2 years, right? So we started out on Udemy alone. And for the first year, we really focused a lot on Udemy. This last year, 2018, we focused on, I don't like the idea of having everything in one basket, right? So, the company, all the income was coming from Udemy, like 95% of the income. So I wanted to diversify that more. So I started teaching on some other platforms like LinkedIn Learning and Lynda, as well as a couple other ones. And also we started, I published a couple of books on Amazon. And then we also created our own website. And that's kind of our big push in 2019 is we have a membership site for our students. And we also sell additional products on there to help aid their learning, because Udemy is limited pretty much to quizzes and videos. And on our own site, we teach cybersecurity. So a lot of that is trying to get people hands-on education. So we have labs on our site that we can allow them to go in and learn how to do this stuff hands-on so they get the skills. So for us, it's more of an evolution beyond just having a single way of teaching or a single platform and spreading that out across multiple platforms. So that's kind of been our big thing over the last, this year was kind of the year of trying a bunch of things out to see what worked. And then the things that worked, we're doing more of that. And the things that didn't, we are pruning that tree and saying we're not going to focus effort there. Because I'm sure you guys get this just like we do. Once you start making some sales on Udemy and people start seeing you have some students, you start hearing from every Udemy clone platform out there, right? Everybody that's, Teach 365 and I don't know, just whatever you put the word teach and study and some numbers together, they all have a platform out there now. And they're like, oh, we want to put your stuff on our site. And when you first start out, you're like, oh, they want me, great. And you start putting all your courses everywhere. And some of them you may get $5 a year from, right? And it's not even worth the time it took you to upload it. And so this year we kind of put a bunch of stuff in a bunch of places. And we saw, okay, these worked and these didn't. So the ones that work, we're going to keep working with. And the ones that don't, we're not wasting time there anymore. So we could try to focus a little bit more as we go.
Well, and I think that that's a good point, because it's very easy to keep doing what's not working, to really, as an entrepreneur, you have to take the time to reflect. Is this worth my time? But starting, you have to plant a lot of seeds.
Exactly.
What seed is going to take off? And even now, and even now we're constantly planting seeds, just because you never know, things might change. We don't know where the market's going to be in a year or something like that. So we're constantly planting seeds. And if this one's growing, then you nurture it a little bit more. If not, then you need to move to another tree,
And then sometimes those seeds you planted like a couple of years ago, all of a sudden, like pop back up and, it's working. You're like, whoa, where did that come from?
Yeah, and I think it's important to realize that when you're doing this type of a business, right? This, whether you call it the information, the selling information economy or whatever you want to call it, it really is mostly based on relationships, right? So it's not as transactional as things used to be. If you think about a traditional book publishing model, right? You'd write a book, you'd sell it to a publisher would go put it on the bookshelf of a whole bunch of places. Somebody would come, they'd buy your book, you'd never talk to that student. But with online courses, you're talking to your students all the time, right? You're in Facebook groups with them. You're in other types of venues with them. And that relationship is what brings that student back into your ecosystem over and over and over again. So when you put out, I'm sure you guys have the same thing we do. I have some students who have bought 15 courses from me, right? And those people, I call them like your diehard fans. I love those people, right? And they do that because they have a connection with me in the way that we talk with them and the way we communicate with them. And so I think that's really important. And that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges that I'm still trying to figure out now as we are growing. Now that I have 60,000 students, it's really hard to have that individual relationship with them that we had when we started out 2 years ago and I had 200 students, right? It's hard to keep that relationship going, and trying to find new ways to keep that going is one of the things I'm really focused on this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's a good advice. And we know that feeling, because obviously it's the same thing as we grew. There's only so much time that we can dedicate to still be able to dedicate to like production and doing some of the other things and stuff. And because we have students, like you said, that have bought like 60 courses, or you send it, or
we
you
have 70 courses. So there's some who've bought literally like every one.
or you just send out an email for your new course, and it's been like a minute since it was out and they already bought it. And you're like,
you couldn't even have read it.
You didn't even read it.
It's
you even know what the course is about.
I like them. I trust them. I'm buying what they put out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like for real.
I love it.
But it's like you said, it's about, developing relationships. And I think that goes to whatever type of business that you have, whether it's an online business or a physical business. We've had a physical magazine, we have a book publishing company, and everything that we've done that succeeded is because we've developed relationships, not only with our clients, but also people that were perceived as competitors in their eyes, because it's all about how can we help each other grow and develop, because the more people know that this is out there, the more people they'll attract to the market, and then everyone has more clientele. So.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the information age is that there's really no need to feel like there's a problem with competition, because I like to think of it like everyone's students are different. So you could be teaching the same thing we teach, and the people who resonate with us are going to take our version, and the people who resonate with you are going to take yours. Yeah. So it's like, no matter what you have to teach, just put it out there, because your people will find you.
So Let me ask you, what is the hardest part that you found in running a business? Just running the business is also as a couple. And obviously talked a little bit about that.
But what's that? What would be the one piece that you've learned from, because it's been hard, that would be your biggest piece of advice?
I think the biggest, most challenging thing is when you start out, it's messy, right? You put out a course, you put out 2 courses, you put out 3 courses, whatever it is, right? And you look up a year later and you're like, wow, I have all these things out there. And now I have to figure out how to support that. And so it's getting the systems correct. We've spent the last 3 or 4 months now really focused on how to get systems in place that help us track things better and do things better. And what I mean by that is I looked up and we had 19 courses. And if a student said, hey, there's an error in video 3 of this course, we had to have a way to track that so that we can then schedule time to go back and fix that. Or there's an error in a quiz or whatever else. And as we've brought on additional people to help us, so right now we've got not just me and Tamera and the 2 kids, but we have 2 other employees that are remote workers who work for us. And for me to be able to tell them, hey, here's what I need you to work on this week, you have to be able to get that management and oversight. I hate management. It's a horrible term because I always think of assembly line, but you kind of have to start figuring that out. And as you talked about, when you start trying to get other people to do transcription for you, other people to do subtitling, other people to do video editing, you've got to figure out, here's the way I like it done. And then how do you teach it to somebody else so they can take that on? And how do you communicate what you need and what you expect back? I think that's been one of the big challenges as you grow. You can't do it all yourself anymore. You need people. And then being able to communicate effectively to those other people to have them do it the way that you would do it, right? Because you're only one person. You can only work at most 24 hours a day, right? But when you get other people, you can do more than 24 hours in a day. What do you think is the biggest challenge?
We had learned, so we've got, each of our courses has, a couple hundred videos each. We learned the hard way to not just name them 1 through 200 or whatever. We've been going through and getting all that corrected in the past few weeks, really, for the earlier courses.
So that's a good point. When you're first starting out and you're labeling your courses, you should come up with a naming scheme for your videos, right? So when I started, I had video. It was 01-welcome, 02- in this course you're going to learn, right? Something like that. And so every course had 01, 02, 03, 04. And what we learned was that was really hard to figure out what video went with what course later on. So come up with this little code, like a 4-digit slug at the beginning, right? That is unique to each course. And that way you can kind of keep things organized. I found that's how big companies do it, and it really works well.
Yeah, so there's that. And then as we discussed the need to hire on our VAs, we're like, how do we get, like you said, teach them our way of doing things? So before we even officially hired them, we started making videos on our processes of how we do things. So that way, as we hired the ones that we have now and then additional ones, because we do see the need for additional in the future, it would always be the same training. Just like when I worked at Wendy's, I had, watched the training video that thousands of other people watched. So we set that up from the start with that.
So how did you all decide when it was time to bring on more people?
So the first person I brought on was Tamera. Sorry.
Dog wanted out.
So the first person I brought on was Tamera, and that was basically because I was running out of time, right? I had a 40-hour week day job. I was recording on the nights and weekends, and for me to record it and then try to edit it was just taking forever. So I insourced and said, hey, let me teach you how to do this video editing. Sat down with her, taught her in a night, I think it was. It didn't take very long. No. And then she took on all the video editing from that point forward. Once
she's like, surprise.
Yeah, surprise, your problem now.
I wanted time with him again because that was taking up so much time. So I'm like, I can take some of this time off and then date nights can be date nights again.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
When I think that's another good point that you're saying, how really it shows that you all are a team. Because you're recognizing that what can we do to work as a team to make this work and still have that time as a couple. So that's pretty awesome.
And as far as, hiring people, I think that's one of the mistakes we've made in our business, right? We waited too long to hire people. And it wasn't a matter of the money and what it costs to hire somebody, because most of the time the people you hire, if you hire right, they're going to make you more money than they cost you, right? So it's not about money. We were so busy building courses and supporting the current courses we had that, even when we wanted to hire somebody, And I kind of went behind her back and put out the ad, even though she had said, we're not going to hire until the new year. And in September, I just put out an ad and said, I'm looking for people now. She got very excited about that. She's like, you said we were going to wait.
I was a
like,
little upset,
my bad communication.
That was the whole, he was piling everything on at once. He was trying to do like 3 courses in that same month that he hired on people. I was just like, what are we doing?
But it takes time to stop and hire people, right? And so for a long time, we weren't hiring somebody because we're like, we don't have the time to go through the applications. We don't have the time to conduct the interviews. We don't have the time to train somebody once we pay them, right? And stopping and being able to give yourself time to do that frees up so much time.
It really did.
The VA that we hired, she is amazing. She is awesome. And she has just made my life so much easier. And she does so much of the stuff. I had a to-do list that was like this long of stuff I wanted to get to. Probably 50 different tasks on it. And in the last 3 months, she's cleared that entire list, right?
That's awesome.
And so it's freed up a lot of time that I was wasting doing things like, not wasting, but like going through the reviews and answering student reviews, right? We get 50 or 100 reviews a day. And I was sitting there and reading those and responding to those. Now she goes through those and says, these are the ones you need to look at. And these are the ones that are just like, we're just responding to.
We get maybe 3 a week that we need to respond to.
So it's stuff like that when you hire the right people, it really just makes your life so much easier. And so don't wait too long to do it.
And I do have a question about that because she said that that person helped you clear about those 50 things, in the 3 months. Do you know if they're still looking for another job? Because
I can't have her.
You're like, she's mine.
The other thing I would suggest to somebody when you're looking for people, I think one of the reasons why I found somebody who was really, really good is, as you know, when you outsource overseas, there's various price ranges. I decided that we wanted to get somebody from the Philippines because the language barrier is very easy to deal with. They are very good. They speak English very well. You get college-educated people for a very, very reasonable wage. And in the place that I was looking, there was people saying, oh, it's $2 to $5 an hour, something like that, right? $2 to $4 to $5 an hour. When I went in, what I said we were going to pay was top of the range, above what people were paying. So I had my choice of anybody I wanted, and I got the person I got. She has a college degree. She speaks English perfectly,
better than I do some days.
She checks and edits my stuff because she has phenomenal English. Had a desire to learn all that kind of stuff, and by don't be afraid to pay at the top of the range. Because if you pay $2 an hour, you're going to get $2 an hour worth of work, right? If you're willing to pay, $5, $6, $7 an hour, which in America is low, but overseas that's actually a really good wage in a lot of countries. You're going to get really high quality people, and so being able to offer things that other employers won't, you can get the right people and get really awesome people.
Yeah, it's awesome.
When I think it's so key what you said that you needed to have your systems in place to be able to train someone. And I think that is something that we relate to because we hired for our first full-timer this year. And that was a big shift. And it took a lot of prep work to be able to take what was so automatic for us and put it down into a step-by-step process to teach someone. So anyone listening, like if you're trying to scale, the first thing you need to do is systematize what you're doing so that you don't have to be a slave doing all of it yourself.
Yep.
And that's always the one thing I look at is, right, if it's anything that I'm doing that becomes repetitious, that is something that is great for outsourcing, right? Or giving to a VA or giving to an employee. It just makes it a lot easier, especially if you're the one who's creating, like for you two, you guys are the people who are on screen. You're the ones who have to write the scripts and be the ones to present it. You shouldn't be copying and pasting things into Q&As, right? Or copying descriptions for your lectures and all that kind of stuff. That's something that can easily be tasked out to somebody else. Yeah. I find that you do the things that only you can do and outsource the rest.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what we try to do. We try to systemize in all the businesses that we have. Everything that we do is that we try to create a process for it naturally. One is because we love to be efficient because we're beach bums. So we want to have as much time on the beach as we can. So it helps us that transition. So the other question is, what has been your favorite accomplishment or that one moment where you felt like this is real? We've created freedom or we've created, we're past that point that this is a legit business.
So I know most people would say it's X amount of dollars, right? For me, actually, So I think you had two questions in there, right? One is, what was your happiest or most proud moment? For me, it's when I hear back from students that they passed their exams, right? I like hearing the life change. They came and bought my course because they wanted a life change. In my case, it's they want to be able to get into the cybersecurity field and they need X, Y, and Z certifications to do that. They come and take my course. They go and pass the exam. They come back and say, I passed the exam, never thought I could. That to me, like every time I hear that, it just makes me so happy. It's why I put in 12-hour days, right? Because I love helping people to get where they want to get. And so when I hit those big numbers, like, hey, we went over 50,000 students, like to me, that just blows my mind, right? Or we get those emails from Udemy that says, hey, this month, 1 million minutes of your content was watched. Like people are listening to me 1 million minutes a month. I'm like, that is just insane, right? I wouldn't listen to me for 1 million minutes, but I mean, it's that reach, right? And you look and you have 189 countries of students that have taken your course. It's stuff like that to me gets it. And then when it feels like a real business, I think that comes down to dollars and cents, right?
Yeah, that was big. I know last year's January sales is when I looked at the numbers and I was just like, I can't believe this is real, that this is something that's entirely possible. And like, I grew up in not the greatest conditions and whatnot. So seeing that this was possible, I was just like, I had no idea. And then this year at Udemy Live, meeting our biggest competitor, really, and having them go, no, I know who you are. We've been watching you. Was like huge. So
luckily, they and both them and us don't view each other as like, I have to get you out of the business so that I can take your money. Because most of our students buy their course and our course because they love it. So I think that's great. But
we still understand the whole teaching style is a big thing. If we're not for you, how about try this other course? They've got great information too.
Yeah. I send a lot of people to my competitor.
We do.
When somebody says, you talk too fast, I don't like the way you teach. I'm like, great. There's a refund policy and go over to him because he's going to help you then if I can't. We have two totally different styles. As far as when it feels like a business, I think it's once we started proceduralizing it and once, for me, it really felt like a business once we hired those first two employees.
The weekly meetings are... Yeah,
because we have a weekly meeting with them every week. So they are part of our team. It's not just me sending them emails and having them do stuff. And that has really made it feel like a business. I think that's really the big one.
And then anytime he gets enough stuff for me to start like editing, I'm just like, oh, look, I've actually got work to do again. So once we get over like a big course and he's like in the lull between courses, I don't have as much to do business-wise. So I get to sit down and catch up on the books that I've wanted to read or shows or errands that I've put off.
And for a year, she did have a ton of stuff because she was doing all the stuff.
All the reviews.
But now when we hired the employee, she took all that stuff off of her. So all the stuff she was doing, except for editing, has gone to the first VA. And then she just handles all the editing now, which freed up a lot of your time.
Editing's my thing. I like it.
But I think it's awesome, too, because it shows that the reason that you're all successful is because you want to help people succeed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And also you don't view it as competition when you see someone else, that you're willing to send someone to someone else and do those things. And I think that comes across, obviously talking to you, and when we met you, Udemy Live and stuff like that, but it also comes across to the students and they know that you genuinely care. And I think that's what really separates you guys and that's helped you thrive and grow so fast.
And I just love that you took the journey and it's like you said, Tamera, it's like, wow, this is like actually doing something. This is possible. And that you kept going because obviously we know you've already mentioned that you're still working, but that you keep getting to that next level where you're starting to outsource, you're starting to automate, you're taking stuff off of Tamera's plate. And so obviously, inevitably, at some point, you're not going to have that job anymore because you're not going to need it. And you're probably already at that point, but it's just that recognition freedom is possible.
Well, and I think the reason that you're still working, I think is important for other people that are working, that are developing a side hustle and things like that. So do you want to share why, obviously you have a business growing rapidly and why you're still...
So yeah, it's, I started this whole thing as a side hustle, right? The whole teaching thing is a side hustle. And after about a year of doing it as a side hustle, my whole goal when I started it was, in the career I'm in, we get our pension after 20 years. If you work for 20 years, then then we get a pension, 50% of our salary for the rest of our life, which is an awesome retirement plan. But if you do 19 years and 11 months and 20 days, you get zero, right? So you have to hit 20 years or beyond. And so I started this as a side hustle. I started at my 15-year point, and I thought, hey, if I can get this whole residual passive income thing going on, and I can get this to about 50% of my pay in the next 5 years, then when I retire from my day job, I get 50% from them, and I'll have 50% from online courses, and I can retire and live on the beach and be a beach bum and just maintain courses, right? And I thought that'd be great. Actually, for me, it's not a beach. I just want to travel. I love traveling. So for me, I'm going to go 3 months and live in Spain, and then 3 months and go to, Japan, and then 3 months and go live someplace else, right? And just keep going around the world. But anyway, but that's when I started this whole thing. By 12 months into it, we had gotten to 100% of my salary, and now we're at about 200% of my salary. So I'm making more in my side hustle than I do in my day job. But I'm still working there because I have this long-term contract, and I've got 3 more years till I hit that retirement gate with them. The other thing that's really nice about my day job is it's in the same field that I teach in. And so by doing my day job, I get better at doing my teaching, right? And it keeps me in that field as well. As opposed to just being a book-learned person, I actually do this on a daily basis. So I think that helps as well. But it is, we started this whole thing so we'd have freedom. And in 3 years, when I'm able to, fully retire, our kids are going to be our kids are going to be done with high school. We're going to be able to go off and travel wherever we want and enjoy and just have that freedom as a family to do what we want. And money isn't really a concern because it's still coming in. You talked about the friend on the beach who hit refresh to see what his thing is. One of our early things that we did when we first started was we would go to a movie on Friday night, and we would hit a snapshot of our revenue page. And then we go see the movie. And then we hit refresh and go, oh, look, we earned $50. We earned more than it cost us to go to this movie. And that was like, yes, this is awesome, right?
And we still do that.
Yeah. We went to Udemy Live, and it was like, a 3-day trip to San Francisco. And we're like, yes, we made enough that this trip, was paid for, right? It's stuff like that, those little wins that just really just make it awesome, right? But I think it's being able to build that freedom for yourself is awesome.
Yeah. And actually, one of the favorite things that we try to do is that we'll hit launch and we'll literally get in the car, or like one time went to the Bahamas and we just launched a course, and that same night we looked up where we wanted to go, booked a ticket, started driving to Orlando because the flight was leaving the next morning out of Orlando, and then left right away. Because it's also, you launch it and it's like, we want to be able to celebrate that launch,
Yes. Yeah.
So I do have a question, and you don't have to answer what that number is, right? But is there a number that your business can hit, for example, this next year, if it really just blew up, that you would say, maybe I don't need to wait those 3 years?
Yeah. So I've already hit that number, to be honest. The problem is I'm on a long-term contract. My contract expires at my 19.5-year point. So at that point, I might as well just do 6 months. So we've exceeded our expectations. Like I said, we thought it would take 5 years to get to half of my pay. And I think by the time I'm actually ready to leave, we'll probably be several multiples of my actual pay. Or
you'll be making in 1 month what you make in a year.
Yeah. I mean, it's, it was pretty crazy because my friends at work, they all knew I started doing this, and they're like, oh, you're wasting your nights and weekends, right? You should just go and drink beer and have fun and go to sports games and all that kind of stuff that they like to do. And I'm sitting there in my little, extra bedroom filming courses. And then they started after about 6 months going, wait, that thing's actually making money. And now they're like, whoa, that thing actually makes a lot of money. And it's like, yeah, if you gave up some of those weekends that you guys were having off, you could have done something too, right? Instead they were just making fun. And I think that's pretty typical, right? People always think like, you can't do this, it's not going to happen. And it just takes a lot of hard work and a lot of perseverance and hitting the right thing. I'm lucky that I have an in-demand skill that people want to learn.
Well, and realistically, it's recognizing that it's just putting yourself out there and be willing to dedicate some time to it, because it'll pay off in the long run. We know people that teach essential oils, and they have courses on that, and they're bringing over $1 million a year on that. We know people teaching how to do retreats in different parts of the world, because that's what, she used to she's a travel agent, but she also used to do that. And actually she used to be a doctor and left as a doctor, sold her practice to be able to do this on the side. And she brings well over $1 million a year as well. So it's recognizing that whatever you can teach someone, there is a global economy now for education.
Oh, yeah.
And that if you've developed a skill, you can find the right people that are willing to pay for that skill.
And so actually we want to close with a little bit of a deeper question. And it's a two-part question. And so it's pretty simple, but the question is, what's the biggest difference that you want your business to make in your own life? Like, what is your vision or your dream? And then the second part is, what's the biggest difference that you want to make in the lives of those you serve?
So your legacy, and this could be, we'd love to hear the answer from each of you.
I'm going to let her go first because I've been talking the whole time.
Yeah, I know you're better at it. So for like family wise, I think it's already like I'm seeing it realized now. As soon as this contract is up and we can be done with that, we'll have our freedom that like I never thought was possible, that we could just travel the world and yet still earn money. So that's something that I've always wanted to do. I love to travel. He's helped me see the world and it's so much fun. As for in other people's lives, I like him. I love seeing the students come and say, oh my God, you helped me so much. I tried these other courses and books and none of them worked, but like the way you did it, it just clicked in my head. We actually ran into somebody in person one day who looked at him. He's like, are you Jason Dion? He was just like, yeah. It's like, I took your course. That was the only way I passed this exam. We were just like, that is mind blowing, seeing that it's changing other people's lives and giving them more opportunities to go further in life because they need these certifications to get further in their companies. And it's really cool.
Yeah. I'd have to agree with that. As far as, for my family, I think one of the big things is it's given us financial freedom, right? We don't have to really worry about money. A lot of people, you're stuck with one job and the economy is weird, right? I'm lucky I'm in a long-term contract. My company's not going to fire me, right? But a lot of people, it's like, you don't know. Next week, you may be fired and not have a job because the company didn't make enough revenue this month. And being able to have this side source of income, even if it's a smaller amount, it takes a lot of that pressure off, right? I love having multiple income streams. I mentioned earlier, I don't like having Udemy being the sole part of our business. And we spent a lot of time this last year making sure that we diversified. Udemy went from being about 95% of our business down to about 60% of our business revenue. But it also doubled or tripled from last year's revenues off Udemy. So we got more from Udemy, but it makes up less of our business because we diversified, right? And I think it's the same thing in our personal lives, is being able to have those extra income streams. It just gives you a freedom that you don't have otherwise. So for me, I think that's really the thing that's changed in our family. As far as for other people, I love seeing my students succeed. One of the things I really have a passion for is I'm in the cybersecurity industry, and we have a bad case of low diversity as far as female to male demographic. I've done a lot of work with a nonprofit in our area here trying to help get more women into cybersecurity. And when I can help women and other people be able to break into this field, it really does. I love seeing that. I like going back and seeing that the student who I helped 2 years ago is now a manager at a company and doing really, really well. When they were, having trouble making ends meet before in the career they were in. So things like that. I still talk to students from 2 and 3 years ago, and that kind of stuff loves me. It's the personal connection. Like I said, the money is great. I love the money. But I just
nothing wrong with that.
I mean, we all want to get paid for what we do, right? I mean, I get that. But yeah, to me, it's what it does for other people that is really what's just awesome.
Well, that sounds amazing. Actually, I just want to say that I have students from like a decade ago that I still keep in contact with and see what they're doing in their life and stuff like that. So I can really relate to that. And again, we're truly honored to have you all with us today and to be able to share your journey and for you to really be that example. Because just like with your coworkers, as you were saying, that you were trying this on and they were laughing, oh, you should spend more time like drinking beer and watching the game, buddy. But you are the example now. Both of you are the example that it is possible. That this is not just some hogwash thing that people talk about, like get rich quick scheme, that you can really do something, have a vision, have a dream, put the effort in, keep planting seeds, and one of those seeds are going to take off, and then just keep nurturing it, and eventually it might get you to where you want to go to.
And I really love, more than anything, your tenacity, that not only are you willing to do it when the other people say, oh yeah, why bother? You're willing to grind it out and figure it out as you go, and not have to know everything when you start, not expect it to be perfect, because that's what holds a lot of people back. And willing to work together and find your way, because we know that it's challenging to do that. And so I think you guys are a great example of how to support each other, even though it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that you're both committed to continuing to grow, as a family, as a couple, as individuals, and then of course your business too, because the business isn't going to thrive if you guys aren't thriving. And so I just love that you represent such a balanced, non-balanced, like you're balanced, non-balanced. And I love that. And I'm just excited that we've been able to have this conversation where other people can, tune in and get inside of your mind of some of those decisions you made and the shifts that you made to make this work for you. And I'm also excited for your future, because I know you guys are going to be out there traveling, and we'll probably be crossing paths while we're out there traveling. And
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, and my vision is to have a private island where I can bring people to have like masterminding sessions. So hopefully by then,
I get an invitation.
Absolutely. You're so invited.
We really appreciate also the realness, to share your vulnerabilities and to be able to let other people know that it doesn't have to be perfect, that there are challenges, because I think a lot of people want to sell this dream of, oh yeah, we're a couple and it's, there's flowers and sunshines and rainbows all over the place.
No.
The reality is that there are challenges.
Overnight, right?
Yeah. Well, don't forget the unicorns.
Yeah.
Right.
But that you do have to kind of, that's part of the process and learning how to work together. And I think we can see it from our perspective, is that both of you bring so much value to each other, in the sense that you bring that balance, because you're from two different spheres as far as what you're, how you work and how you view things, but then you help each other kind of build more in towards that middle. And I think for us, that's the beauty of our relationship and working together, is that we've kind of helped each other be more balanced as people. So thank you for sharing your vulnerabilities.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you again, guys.
Yeah, have a great one.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
No matter who you are or what you know and love, there are people out there right now who want to learn what you have to share. We invite you to subscribe and listen as we interview other online course creators, so you can learn different strategies and get inspired by their real-world success. If you're ready to join the online course revolution, find out how at onlinecourserevolution.com.